hey, what if life was trying to help me heal, grow, and bring about the changes I desired in my life, but up to that point I'd been second-guessing life and trying to control life based on the idea that I know what's supposed to be happening, and I'm gonna fight to make it that way. The Spiritual Shitshow Podcast with Suzanne Sole, episode number 5. Hey there, you frickin' superstars. Welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow Podcast, where we get into the complete shiz show the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Sole, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I'm sharing some of the amazing shit I've learned along my journey that has helped me, and that I hope helps you too. Let's get ready to rumble! Okay, what if every disappointing or fucked up thing that happened in your life happened for you? You might say, for me? What the fuck did I do? And I completely get it. But what if you knew you were made by the difficult shit you went through and that the challenges you had to overcome could affect your life even more beneficially than all the fun crap, if you allowed it to? You might say, shit, I must have signed up for the character building spiritual journey life discount package instead of the rich and famous celebrity luxury package by mistake. But girl, even the celebs go through it. Just pick up a tabloid. And then you might stop and ask, wait a minute, what the fuck does this lady know? And I would say, oh, okay. So if this is your first time listening to this shit show, let me tell you a little bit about myself. As I said in my intro, my name is Suzanne Sole, and I'm a comedian and spiritual seeker / student / supermodel. JK, I'm not a supermodel, but I am the very model of a modern major general. But for realsies, I have been on the spiritual and healing journey for over 25 years. And I have seen some shit, man. Any hoodles. In this episode, we're talking about navigating our spiritual lessons. Now you might be asking, what the fuck is a spiritual lesson? And then I would say, oh, okay, pull up a chair, except if you're driving or jogging or not near any chairs. And then you might say, I'd prefer to stand. And then I would retort, darling, don't get your panties in a bunch. Spiritual lessons are all around us all the time, but sometimes we can't see them, like microscopic flakes of poo in the air. JK, I'm sorry, I know that was gross. But what we can do is learn to go with the flow of our spiritual education in a way that doesn't feel like we're Sisyphus rolling that giant boulder up the mountain. But I'll get into that later. But first, let's start with your original question. What the fuck is a spiritual lesson? Okay, class, settle down now. So, spiritual lessons are experiences, many times challenging experiences, that we encounter in our lives that can show us the ego structures we have in place, aka our thought patterns and beliefs, that are keeping us from our good and that we can't see. Like, of course, airborne poo. Johnny, sit down. We're still doing the lesson. So, class, how can we see these spiritual lessons? And how can we see the ego structures we have in place, aka our thought patterns and beliefs that are keeping us from our good, that these lessons are trying to show us? That's right, Sally. We have to listen to the teacher. Okay, so how do we listen to the teacher? Well, let me give you a few hot tips. Hot tip number 1, the teacher is life, aka spirit, aka God. Hot tip number 2, you gotta let go and try not to be in control of everything and everyone outside of you, or you'll miss your lessons, babe. Hot tip number 3, but also a disclaimer, spiritual lessons that show up in our lives are not there for the purpose of punishing us or because we're incapable of evolving. They're there to open us up, open our hearts and minds, and help us to become more free. Woo! Story time. There was this one time back in the day when I found out this guy at my job who barely ever did anything. I mean, this guy had 50 ways to get out of working. He'd slip out the back, Jack. He'd make a new plan, Stan. He wasn't even trying to be coy, Roy. and he made more money than me. My first reaction when I found out how much money he was making, my Italian came out. Are you fucking kidding me? Am I being punked right now? This guy? This guy right here. This guy who the only thing he does before 10 a.m. is eat the crusts off his fucking PB&J sandwiches? This guy who says he'll be right back at 2 o'clock and we don't see him again till 4:45 and no one knows where the fuck he goes? That guy. That guy right there is making more money than me? Well, fuck that guy. That guy's a fucking bum and I got no use for that guy. So the blood is boiling and we are huffing and puffing like a horse after a lively jaunt around the track. And then we call our people and share our outrage and dismay. Betty, it's me. You're not going to believe this. You know that co-worker I told you about who's nothing but a stinking louse? Well, get this. I just found out that tookie's making more dough than I am. Yeah, that's right. Of course I'm serious. I'm as serious as a heart attack. I know. I can't believe it either. No, Betty, I can't do that. I can't find out his bank account number and set up a dummy bill pay request for the difference and then divert the funds into my bank account. No, Betty, I can't call payroll and tell them that he's died and that in his will it states his life insurance benefits be forever deposited into my bank account. No, Betty, I can't wear a fake mustache, dress up like him, and then go into HR and talk in a low voice and say, "Pardon me, HR, but my direct deposit information has changed. Here is my new bank account information where you may send my checks from this day forward. Oh, and if I call you next payday and ask you where my paycheck is, just ignore me, because I will just be pulling your leg." That would never work, because he's very tall and I'm very short. No, I can't wear stilts, Betty. You know I can barely walk in heels. So that plan is out. Oh, Betty, what's a low-salary girl to do? So, first of all, that is a totes normal initial reaction to have when you hear that kind of news. And second of all, in the big societal picture, it could be construed as fucking unfair. But, okay, so hear me out. After we have our first reaction and do all our drama and call all our people and share our outrage and dismay, then what? Why then, my darling, we look inward and ask ourselves, what do I think this situation is trying to tell me about myself? And I don't mean for the purposes of making a judgment about our reaction to the situation, but for the purposes of discovering what's underneath our reaction. This isn't an opportunity to chastise or berate ourselves. Because, sugar muffin top, when we keep our focus and attention on what is happening for the other guy and leave it there and that's it and that's the moral of the story, and compare our situation with the other guy's situation and only look at the outer circumstances and how they need to be different, why, we miss an opportunity to grow and discount our own personal power in our own lives. Because without realizing it, when we see a situation only as this is happening to me and life is unfair and everything is unfair, etc., 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 which, no shade, as I said, we got to feel our feels and hear our inner child. And of course, we're going to think about it and bitch about it and moan about it, because that's what we do in situations like this. And I do find that getting it off my chest can be helpful. But if we stay there and we never allow ourselves to go to the next phase of the experience, we land on taking the word of the little girl or little boy inside of us and their assessment of the situation as the way it is. And their assessment of the situation is the assessment of a defenseless, powerless child who doesn't have a lot of choices in life because they're a child. And thusly, what we don't realize is that from the angle of our inner child, we are reading the situation as a barometer of what is possible for us in life now from the perspective of maybe like an 8-year-old. So how we decide to continue to look at anything and what we land on as our final analysis of a situation matters. Because for realsies, which perspective benefits me and my happiness and my well-being and my spiritual growth and my evolution more? Thinking that the guy or the boss need to be different than they are and the situation needs to be different than it is when I clearly do not have any control over them, nor do I have the power to make them create a situation that is befitting to me? Or by looking inward and noticing how I'm feeling and what I'm believing about myself and my place in the world. Noticing the beliefs the situation is triggering in me and bringing up to the surface for me to see that I have not been able to see prior. Possible shit beliefs that have been lurking in the background of my mind every day, dictating and operating my life, but that might not always be known to me in my conscious everyday life unless something triggers them, thusly pulling them out of hiding so I can notice them in that moment because I'm feeling them very, very strongly. So you see, that whole situation can help me see those shitty ass beliefs that block my good that I normally would not be able to see. So at the time, I had been leaning into my desire to heal and grow and bring about change in my life. And I knew that to heal and grow and bring about change in my life, I needed to see where my thinking was limiting me and holding me back from living a life that felt more in alignment with my conscious beliefs. The idea came to me that this change needed to come from the inside out. And then that made me think, hey, what if life was trying to help me heal, grow, and bring about the changes I desired in my life, but up to that point I'd been second-guessing life and trying to control life based on the idea that I know what's supposed to be happening and I'm gonna fight to make it that way. I love the title of that gospel play, Your Arms Are Too Short to Box with God, because, right? So I started to become more aware of my spiritual journey and trusting that life, aka spirit, was always showing me what I needed to see. So I could grow the way I needed to grow and remove the obstacles in my ego structure that kept me from believing in myself, seeing my worth, believing I deserved happiness, and living a life that felt authentic to me. And honestly, just getting to the place of willingness came from many, many of my external agendas not being fulfilled. And the high of the agendas that were fulfilled not lasting that long. So I finally let go of demanding and trying to force life to be a certain way. Because here's the thing. If we have a lot of limiting beliefs, like I could never do this, or I'm not good enough to do that, or putting myself out there is unsafe, and we try to control life, whenever we are fighting life and saying, I want it that way, the demands we are working so hard to uphold or make happen are based on those fucking limiting core beliefs. Right? And maybe, just maybe, life is trying to help us grow into the person who is capable of living the life of our dreams. And so we can be a big old source of love and light in the world. And like I said in the beginning of this podcast, we grow and are made by our challenges more than we are by the fun stuff. Sorry, I know that likely sounds like it sucks. But girl, you know it's true. Ooh, 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 I love you. This is obviously a Hits of the 80s and 90s episode, and I'm loving it. Now, does recognizing that our challenges are for us mean our challenges will hurt less or be less scary when they're occurring? Maybe a smidge? Most likely they will still hurt and they will still be scary. But seeing our challenges from this angle can help us move through them with some more grace and maybe a bit more tolerance and help us grow from those challenges. And y'all, as a side note, don't be afraid to let expectations for other people go because the water's fine on the other side. The reason we may find ourselves in the middle of a spiritual lesson is because a dream for our lives has come into our hearts. And being a match to live that dream requires us to grow and let go of old limiting thoughts, beliefs, and habits that would be obstacles to us being able to sustain the dream once it is realized. Or maybe our soul has an agenda for us that we don't even know about, but life, spirit, our soul is trying to move us in that direction. Or maybe simply to open our hearts and minds to enjoy a more fulfilling experience of life and be a source of love in the world. And disclaimer, I say trying because free will. We don't have to go with the flow of life if we don't want to. And we see that kind of resistance happening all the time in our own lives as well as others. That constant fighting and forcing ourselves to be a certain way based on some idea of perfection we believe we need to achieve, or fighting and forcing other people and the world to be a certain way or do certain things to make us feel better about ourselves, or demand they reflect back to us what we want to see about ourselves. A demand based on our attempt to compensate for a painful wound from our childhood that caused a rift in our self-esteem. And I only have 3 words for that kind of activity. Exhausting. So back to the story. At the time, I'd been focusing on trying to be honest with myself so I could see the thoughts and beliefs that had been keeping me living small for so long. And one of the practices I had started was that when I would start blaming other people for why my life wasn't the way I wanted it to be, or getting angry about situations that I saw as unfair, but okay, first of all, we're all totes human, and totes compassion for myself and honoring our feelings is important. So first, I would let myself pitch a fit. That motherfucking shit ass to myself, and maybe a safe person for a bit because I was triggered. But then I'd say, okay, brain, now that we got that out, we're going to redirect our focus and open our eyes so we can see and receive the teaching that life, aka spirit, is offering us. And I will nurture and love myself as best I can while I process this lesson. And trust that life is moving me in the direction I'm supposed to be going toward building a life that feels authentic to me. Doesn't mean the trigger doesn't pop up again after that, but when it does, I catch myself eventually. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I'll go back to something that pissed me off and realize that I've been on an internal rampage about it for 3 days straight without remembering the practice I was doing. Rome wasn't built in a day. And then when I do catch myself, I try to talk to myself like I'm my own loving parent and say, I know, sweetie, buttercup, muffin face, lamb chop. I understand, sugar bun. Now go clean your room. JK, my room is messy, and I'm okay with it. But check this out. In a situation like the one I just described, as soon as I let go of what they are doing and move my attention into my lane, I can see clearly now the rain has gone, that I am being shown how my struggle with my self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, and self-value operates in my life, and how it really affects the experience of life that I have. So being more mindful, noticing what I'm thinking about myself, what I'm telling myself about myself, and learning to be more kind, loving, and encouraging to myself, and making it a practice to learn to believe in myself will most likely really make a difference in my experience of life. Amen. Here's another nugget. I realized that whenever I am upset or angry about a situation and keep my attention on how that situation or the person or the people involved should be different so I feel better, I am confirming to myself that I am helpless and powerless and unable to affect my life in positive ways, and that I am not good enough to create a life that feels meaningful and empowers me. And that was a real eye-opener. And disclaimer, this doesn't mean we don't advocate for ourselves or use our voice or tell the people in our lives what we need. But it does mean that when a challenging situation triggers us, that we be present with our feelings, show up for ourselves in a self-loving way, and look to see if there might be a wound in us that needs healing that is keeping us stuck, for which we need to seek support or be kinder to ourselves or learn to believe more fully in our own capabilities. And sometimes we may actually need to change our environment or the way we operate in our environment, but we do it for the benefit of our growth and to continue discovering our own path. So when I put the situation through the sassy spiritual journey lens, I can see it as a loving teaching, I was blind, but now I see. And what I could see was that the parameters I had in place for myself for what was possible for me in life were too small. And that person and situation was showing me my bar was too low, that I was good enough to enjoy abundance, that I don't have to be perfect to deserve good things, and that I could believe in my own potential. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. It doesn't mean I have to get exactly what the other person has, but I saw that the possibilities were much more vast than I had been seeing. Allowing the spiritual teaching that comes through processing events without trying to change anyone or anything else is the best thing for us. Because when you're worried about what they did or what they are like or how they should be, it's like signing up for college and sending someone else to the classes. When you're triggered, try to be there for yourself. You can get support or call a friend. You don't have to do it alone. But when you don't make your trigger the other person's responsibility, that's how the situation can help you grow. And disclaimer, this never means allowing someone to harm or abuse you. What it means is you take care of yourself. And BTW, if you are in a harmful or abusive situation, find a way to leave safely and don't risk your well-being to try to change the other person. Because even if you gave someone all your energy, your blood, even your organs, we cannot change any motherfuckers. And since we cannot change any motherfuckers, if a relationship feels unhealthy and is causing you a lot of emotional pain and you express yourself in a productive and earnest way, and the other person is unwilling to hear you and try to work with you to create a loving and nurturing relationship for everyone involved, sometimes we have to let people go and trust that God is right where they are and that healing and transformation is ready for each person when they are open to it. The moral of the story? I am the person who tells myself what is possible for me. I was the one putting restrictions on what I believed was possible in my life. Nobody else. Because I learned to see life with a lot of fear, with the belief that it was safer to play small and to expect less. And when we're not using our precioso energy to put demands on other people, we have so much more energy to grow and to learn how to open ourselves up to allow the many beautiful possibilities of life into our lives. Hint, way more than we can even frickin' imagine. Y'all, life is so boundless, you couldn't even make up what is possible if you fucking tried. People say that all the time about things that occur in their lives, especially the most fulfilling and amazing things. I couldn't have even made this shit up if I tried. Life, so incredible, you couldn't even make it up if you tried. Which I think should be the slogan if they ever decide to make a commercial for life. Our paths cross with each other, and then we're in the same scenario. But each person is still on their own individual path because we're each serving a purpose or playing a role in each other's story at the same time. Like in the situation I described, that guy was in my life for the reason I needed him to be in it, and the same with him. I was playing a role in his life to be a catalyst for his growth and freedom if he wanted it. They say pray for patience and opportunities to practice patience will be brought into your life. I believe our souls are prefabbed for freedom and open-hearted love, and our souls are working in collab with spirit and other souls so we can help each other become free. Just sometimes it looks like a whole lot of fucking drama. And you know how I love drama. But I want to tell you, I have watched myself change and grow because since I started seeing that life was lovingly trying to teach me and help me grow, and because I've stopped trying to change other people and started listening and receiving my lessons, my experience of life and my experience of myself gets better every day. Do I still experience challenges, hurts, pains, fears, get rejected, make a lot of mistakes, fail? Yup. Yes, I do. But now I try to learn from these experiences and I try to encourage myself and I try to be there for myself. And I do my best to be my very own best friend and forgive and accept myself as much as I can. And I do not always do these things perfectly, but I try to do them. And that makes all the difference. Anyway, motherfuckers, I love you so fucking much. This has been the Spiritual Shitshow podcast, so fuck off. And thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Roll it. I asked you to roll it, so why don't you go ahead and fucking roll it?